In this episode, I get a little autobiographical.
Gorgeous, baby. You're gorgeous.
This is the Josh Podcast Show. The anti-podcast podcast on God and man. The show that everybody's talking about. The show that will become a necessary part of your weekly mental diet. The show that picks up where JoshRolfe.com leaves off. The show title that uses the word podcast 4 times. Introducing your host, Josh Rolfe.
No one on this beautiful planet called Earth wants to hear about a failed business. In our society today, we want to talk about success. We want to talk about achievement. We want to talk about all that is good and right. No one wants to hear about a failed business unless it was an overly hyped one like Enron or Lehman Brothers or the Ford Pinto. We like hearing stories like that about failure when it's far away, disconnected from us, from our individual lives. This episode might not attract anyone for that reason because it's about a failed business, but I'm going to share it anyway. Otherwise, the entire thing is for naught. It's a love story of a guy with no business experience, but a real business drive, who tried, failed, and is still trying to do something he loves. He tried for years just to come up with an idea, to a business idea, to launch. He had absolutely no money to his name. He had nothing, no partner, no established entity, no nothing, no experience in the area that he was delving into. This guy had no business getting involved in business. Yet here's the dramatic pause. Bum, 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 bum. It's my story. It's my story of coming up with an idea and running with it. And the story, as I've just kind of said, it doesn't end well, as in it doesn't end in success, peace, and prosperity. So it's kind of a business tragedy, which I will readily admit. And I'm not completely over this. If the planets were in alignment all of a sudden and a window of opportunity opened up for this business idea, I would try to make it happen again. But let's back up to the beginning. What starts this out as a possible tragedy is that I was perhaps born at the wrong time in human civilization. Unless reincarnation is true, and I've lived a bunch of times before this, in which case I was not born at the wrong time, and I will possibly have future times. But assuming I have only lived this once, it probably would have been better if I was born in the year 1409 BC or even 1409 AD. It doesn't matter. But a time when 99% of the working men had only one choice of career. That is to do what their parent did. Your dad's a farmer, you will be a farmer. Your dad's a carpenter, same thing. Blacksmith, you know what you're doing. Your dad's in the military, that's what you've got to do. Your dad's the king, guess what, buddy? You're going to be the king, all right? Suck it up, my friend. If you go back in time to my grandfather, my dad's dad, he was a farmer. His dad was a farmer, and his dad and the next dad were farmers, and his dad was also a farmer, but listed on the census that he was a school teacher. And you have to go a ways back, and you'll see farmer, 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 teacher, then farmer on the census records. My dad is a teacher, a professor. So my Rolfe lineage has me pegged, if this were previous times, to either teach or farm. I could easily be happy doing either. The problem is, and the reason I believe I was born at the wrong time, is I was born with no land or property to my name, so farming becomes much more difficult in that setting and no real direction. So teaching wasn't really a consideration. My mom actually counseled me against it because it wasn't necessarily a cash cow. I was born at a time when there are thousands of career possibilities, literally thousands. We went from dozens of job possibilities in the year 1409 BC or 1409 AD to many thousands. I could be a marine biologist studying the depths of the sea or an astronaut exploring the frontiers of space. I could be traveling great speeds, thinking historically here, so over 20 miles per hour, faster than a horse, as a train conductor or a cab driver or a trucker, or I could be using my muscle in construction or as a longshoreman or farmer, or I can sit behind a desk exercising my pointer finger all day long as it navigates the computer mouse on the screen. I could be almost anything but a leprechaun, except that in today's entertainment-driven society, I could actually even be, for the first time in human history, make a living being a leprechaun. We live in an amazing, amazing time. So in my life, I want to get a little autobiographical here, as I stated at the very beginning. I've always liked sales. I've never been particularly good at sales, although I've had a lot of sales jobs, selling door to door, selling cell phones, everything from cell phones to golf supplies to Martha Stewart subscriptions. I have done it all, my friends. My grandfather on my mother's side was in sales, and I aspired to be like him. He was my hero. Just died a couple years ago. So fast forward to college, law school, DC. I dropped out of law school, went to DC afterwards, and I had been there I met a friend shortly after, and we had business ideas. He was just as business driven as I was, except we were stuck on Capitol Hill, a place where when you work for a member of Congress, you're pretty much giving your life away to this politician. And at the same time, there was this boom in Startupville. Lots of startups being launched and lots of money being made on the web. Post-bubble, this is like early to mid 2000s. We got together one night in my apartment to reserve a domain name. We came up with the name on the spot, went to GoDaddy and reserved it. And the name that we chose, we wanted a name that rhymed. And I really liked the word paleo. I thought it was a cool word. And for a tech company to be named Paleo something, I thought was kind of funny and cool, because paleo is anything ancient or prehistoric coupled with, something new and progressing. And so we chose the word flow, which connotes a looking forward, moving into the future. And so the concept was taking old ideas, paleo ideas, and moving them in the future. And so we created a website. Through that, it was going to be a shopping site. Turned out Paleoflow is actually a word. It's a real word. It's like a geologic term. So learn later about the flow state and learn some really cool stuff. There's this psychologist named a name I cannot pronounce. It's like Csikszentmihalyi or something. He has a book of these investigations of what he calls the optimal experience, where this is from the Amazon book, The Flow State, their description. The optimal experiences have revealed that what makes an experience genuinely satisfying is a state of consciousness called flow. During flow, people typically experience deep enjoyment, creativity, and a total involvement with life. I'll get more to that in a little bit. So we started Paleoflow and just we're so tied up in our jobs that nothing really happened. So we did a lot of things. We wrote scripts together for a sitcom based on Capitol Hill. We started a 527 political group. Meanwhile, my boss was defeated in election. And so, about a month later, had twins that were born. My wife had just quit her job to stay at home with them. And so it was a crazy time. And then I started at U.S. Department of Agriculture, where for the next 2 years was a total blur with newborn twins and a very intense job going on. So after that, moved to California, and one day I remember this. It was like a storm. It was like the storm, like a good storm that hit me with this incredible entrepreneurial spirit. I began working for farmers in California, and I think the farmer entrepreneurial energy was there, and the energy from Silicon Valley was kind of wafting into the Sacramento Valley. And I have always had a strong interest in technology. So over the next couple of years, I had these ideas. And early on, after moving out here, I began to sell bumper stickers online. And these were all political. They were humorous. They were kind of funny. I learned how to design them in Illustrator. And I learned how to start a website in more detail than I had years previously. And so I moved here in 2009 to California. And by the summer of 2011, I had like 15 ideas for a business. And I finally settled on one. And this was the idea that rose to the top, was to create a digital bumper sticker. A bumper sticker that you could change with your phone, with your device. It could carry ads. It could bring in revenue. So I needed a prototype. I needed to patent it. I went to a lawyer. It was the best one I could find in Sacramento, charged an arm and a leg. And then also got a patent attorney in Silicon Valley. And I started an LLC all in November 2011. Some engineers at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, California, were developing the prototype. And I got that later in 2012, like in May or so. And this whole time I was dead serious about the company. And I want to explain more about it, not just digital bumper stickers, but kind of how it evolved and why I'm still in love and why this is a love story here in a sec. I was dead serious about the company. I was trying to recruit the best talent I could find on a budget. I found guys going through college ads, going to colleges, doing even Craigslist. I found some guys on Craigslist, and I finally had this team that was based all over Northern California, and we would meet daily via Google Hangouts and Skype, all after hours of my job, and worked out a company vision. I had some guys that had some great business experience. And the whole thing was at the most, I think I had like 6 guys who were helping me with this. And it was exhilarating. It was fun. It was fresh. It was exciting. It was exciting to imagine we might soon have a product. And here was the vision of the product. So there's a famous investor called Steve Blank. He did a podcast called How to Build a $1 Billion Startup. He concluded this with the following paragraph that I'm going to read. Value propositions come in two forms. They solve a problem or they fulfill a human social need. Social needs are friendship, dating, sex, entertainment, art, communication, blogs, confession, networking, gambling, religion, etc. They have always been fulfilled face-to-face. They are now moving online. The market size for these applications equals the entire human race. These are the ultimate applications. So go back to flow, the flow state. The flow state, or that optimal experience, when we experience something genuinely satisfying and achieve what this psychologist called flow. This, in his theory, is achieved in isolation. What I was after was the optimal experience. Paleoflow would become the optimal experience in a social setting. So if you start with a digital bumper sticker, the whole concept is that you're putting something out there digitally that will be seen by the people in the physical world around you. As Steve Blank said, for all of human existence, we've been communicating in person, face to face. Technology, beginning with mail and then the telegraph, has all been face to face or through the written word. Then it became video, and now we have this internet thing, and we have social media platforms now. So my thinking was, I have a social world that exists on the internet. Facebook, I have a profile. Twitter, I have a profile. Instagram, I'm even on Pinterest. I'll admit that. I tried it out. That didn't really go anywhere. But there's these social media platforms. They're all sort of in the cloud, if you think about it that way. They're all online. They're all through the written word, or I could do video too. But that's all. It's not face-to-face. Okay. Then you have the social experience on the ground. What a digital bumper sticker or a digital display could do is to connect what you post on the cloud with who you're seeing on the ground, thus achieving a flow state or an optimal experience between everyone in your social media setting. And so I called this super social media, and where Web 1.0 was a static, unchanging website that never changed live, to Web 2.0, which is what Facebook and Twitter and those sites capitalized on, where it could be updated in real time, to then Web 3.0. People debated for a while, what's Web 3.0? I would propose that super social media is the future, that is the way to connect our internet world with our real world. So I wrote some posts on this. You can go to paleoflow.com, and I'm sure the elephant in the room here is paleo. The word paleo became tied up in a diet craze not long after I formed the LLC, unfortunately. So I started calling this Flow It, and Flow It became a website that I started when I began to realize that starting a hardware company was hard. That's what they say in the hardware industry. You need a ton of capital, and I just wasn't really making headway with venture capitalists to get the funding I needed because I had a ragtag team and didn't have experience myself. And so the device wasn't really going anywhere, even though I did create a device, and I'm looking at it right now. It says it's an e-paper display, and it says this is the first e-paper bumper sticker, and then has bumperbee.com, which was one of the websites I'd started. I started so many websites trying to hit the perfect thing that would evolve into, that would bring money in to develop the device ultimately. So that was the thought. And as far as moving away from the bumper sticker and just creating a display, I thought if you have a display sitting on your desk or in a kind of a see-through clear pocket in a backpack, so a kid could wear this, or down the line when when our shirts kind of can display images, have mini screens on the display on the shirts, and there is technology going, even e-paper. E-ink is the company that makes e-paper that's used on Amazon Kindle. When the sun's shining on it, you can still read it perfectly, which is why I chose e-paper for the bumper sticker. And even at night, headlights shine on it and you could read it perfectly. So there were lots of options of ways to use this device so that the people around you could see what you're tweeting or what you're putting on Facebook that you allow on the device. So would you post more on Facebook or Twitter? Like right now, the big argument is Facebook is kind of dying. Twitter is kind of dying. In a sense, they're not going anywhere because we depend on these, we rely on these, but people aren't using them because they're not as satisfying. So would you post more on Facebook or Twitter if you knew the people around you in your physical space would also see it? And there's, rules to that. Like at work, I don't want everyone to see what I'm posting with my friends and family, but there might be things that I do want them to see. And so it just makes that connection. And I think it makes it more valuable when, let's say I post something political in public, or I'm having an argument with someone on Facebook. Would you take it a little differently or say it a little differently, more kindly, perhaps, if you knew that this would be seen by people around you in the real world, which is what I'm going to talk about soon when I talk about politics. So, man, I have this cough lately. I began to see the writing on the wall by mid 2012. So I started a Kickstarter campaign for a proposed book on one word, a story I'd been working on. And I hadn't really been blogging religiously, although I was blogging about religion back when I started it, when I think it was in DC. Or it could have been here, but by the end of 2012, the Kickstarter campaign fell apart. The whole reason for doing that book was not only to fund the book, but also a backdoor way of funding the company. And by the end of 2012, I started an iPad planner app that I really was in love with and found a partner. And that one kind of fell apart too by early 2013. 2013 was the year of movie scripts, where I got involved with a friend and then met some others who had movie scripts that I was working on. And those all kind of fell apart, along with another business idea that another friend of mine was working on, and I was working on his business. All of those kind of went away by the fall of 2013. And it was in November of 2013 that I started joshrolf.com, the blog. And after doing it for about 6 months, I thought, why don't I read this? I should read this and make it a podcast. So by the end of 2014, I had figured it all out, gotten the equipment to start the podcast. And here we are 2 years later. And this podcast and the blog are owned by Paleoflow LLC. Did you know that? So Paleoflow is still in existence. You can go to paleoflow.com. It is not a beautiful site, but it'll take you to the blog of where I was chronicling the business. I did change around some of the dates later on. I was trying to make it look to investors like I was like I had written recently. So some of the dates are a little askew, but I've been putting 95% of my creative energies into the podcast and the blog in the last 2 years. But I still, every now and then, will work on the blog. The app has kind of died off too, but I still have a love for this super social media concept. And as we begin now, this augmented reality / virtual reality craze with Pokemon Go and the new Oculus lens that allows you to experience virtual reality. I just don't see those really taking off in a huge way. I think at the end of the day, we love Facebook and Twitter more than we do augmented reality. And I think younger people might be more drawn to that, but I don't see people walking around with goggles 20 years from now, other than as a game or as a pastime. Social media is really where it's at. Harkening again back to the Steve Blank quote that this is the future, is how to fulfill those social needs. So people want to see each other. People want to experience that social fulfillment, that optimal experience of being together. And if I don't do the device, if I don't create it, then hopefully someone down the line does. But if you happen to have a lot of money and can take on the risk, I would love to partner up. So if the podcast suddenly disappears, you start seeing digital bumper stickers on the road and super social signs in offices, then you will know where I went. So that's my love story. I don't know if I shared it in the best way, but I love the super social idea. I love the super social concept. I will also say I had a website for a while that would reverse it so that those in your social media land in the cloud would know what you're doing on the ground. And it was a way of kind of bridging them all together. And Paleoflow is going to be the company that did all of the above. I will also say flowit.co was a site that turned your text so you could write out a micro tweet length text of, I think the max was 20 characters or 25 characters, and it would turn it into an image that looked like a bumper sticker. And you could convert emoji down the line it was going to do that. But it was kind of like a meme, but you would create something that looked more like a bumper sticker and you could post that to Facebook or Twitter. I never took that out of beta. I never even launched it or told people about it, but that was going to be another backdoor way of getting some users to then show investors that I could get that I had the customers, potential customers or market that might be interested in the device. There were problems with the device. The technology really isn't there for it being outdoors. The e-paper displays have a max temperature of like 110, 120 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you're sitting in a car where it gets up to 150 degrees, then the thing could melt and become a hazard. So the e-ink technology isn't really there for outdoor use, although there are digital signs that can be used. But putting it on your bumper, or if you're worried about theft, inside your car window, which was another use case for it. I also had a patent that was pending for a while. The expiration for patent pending is a year. And I let that go, although I have a friend who's a patent attorney who has said he would help me out to get the patent. But at this point, I'm not sure I need to expend all that energy unless I have someone who's interested. So that's the reason for this show today, is to tell you about my business ideas And if you want to work, I will work you into the ground. So let's work. Let's make it. Let's build it. If you had no interest in this and you're ready to maybe I should clap my hands to wake you up. Wake up. Wake up. Come on. If you want to review the podcast, please do. You don't have to actually write a review. Just give it 5 stars in iTunes and the iTunes app. I would really appreciate it. Still sitting on 24 reviews. Thank you, as always, for listening, and I'll be back next week.
Thank you for listening to the Josh Podcast Show, the anti-podcast podcast on God and man. For more information, visit joshpodcast.com. Follow Josh on Twitter at Josh Rolfe. That's Rolfe, R-O-L-P as in podcast, H. Now go and have the best day and night ever. And have fun.